Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be drafting the pattern of this dress. So here is the paper I'll be using. I already have a straight line at the top which is going to serve as my shoulder line. On that line I'm going to take my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches. I'm going to mark it down. Then I'm going to come down by 1 inch from that 8 inches, and that's going to serve as my shoulder slope. From that shoulder slope I'm going to be coming down by 8 inches, my round armhole measurements divided by 2. Then I'm going to rule a straight line across the dot I just made. Then I'm going to connect the dots to the shoulder slope as well. So the straight line is going to serve as my chest line. For the neckline, I'm going to be coming down by 3 inches for the depth, and I'm going to go in by 3 inches for the width, and I'm going to connect them together like this. Then I'm going to connect my shoulder slope to my neckline area in a slanted way like this. From my shoulder line, I'll start taking my vertical measurements. From my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches, and from my shoulder to my under bust is 13 inches, and from my shoulder to my waistline is 15 inches. So I'm going to be ruling out a straight line across all the dots I've made. And I'm going to label them as my bust point, my under bust, and my waistline. So to find the midpoint of my armhole line, I'm going to divide the 8 inches into 2, and what I have there is 4 inches. I'm going to mark it down. Then I'm going to go in by half an inch from that 4 inches. On my chest line, I'm going to mark down my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 9 inches, and I'm going to connect the 9 inches to the midpoint of the armhole line, that is the half an inch, and to the up part of the armhole line like this. So on my bust point line, I'm going to mark down my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I'm going to mark it down on the bust line, and I'm going to connect it to my under bust line and my waistline on a straight line like this, and that will serve as my dart line. So for my bust point line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. On my waistline, on both sides of the dart line, I'll be going in by half an inch on the part that is facing the middle of the dress, and I'll be going in by 1 inch on the other side, and I'm going to connect both of them to my under bust line on a straight line. So I went in by half an inch on the part I'm presently ruling a line, then I went in by 1 inch on this other side. Now I'm going to take my curve and connect those lines in a curvy way to the 1 inch I came down by from my bust point. I'm not going to connect it straight to my bust point line. Remember, I came down by 1 inch from my bust point on the dart line. So I'm going to connect the lines like this in a curvy way to that 1 inch. I'm going to connect both sides of the line. Now I'm going to divide my shoulder into 2. I'm going to place my tape from the end of my neckline to my armhole line like this. I'm going to divide it into 2 and mark down whatever I have there, and I'm going to connect whatever I have there to my bust point line. I'm going to connect it to where my dart is on my bust point line. So for the length of the yoke, I'll be taking 7 inches. I'm going to mark down 7 inches like this. You can decide to maintain the 8 inches, your current chest line, you can decide to maintain it. So I just marked down the 7 inches and I'm going to pull a straight line across like this. So on the 7 inches where the dot line is passing through, I'm going to mark down 0.7 on this side, then I'm going to mark 1 inch on the other side, and I'm going to connect it to my bust point line like this. So if you're making the dress for a busty person, at the down part where we went in by 1.5 inch, you should make it 2 inches, and the other side you can take 0.7 inch or 8 inches. The other side we took half an inch for the down parts. So for the neckline of the yoke I'm making is a straight yoke, but if you're making a sweetheart neckline, you can just come down like this, just the way I did. If you're making a sweetheart neckline, but I'm making a straight yoke, and I'm going to connect this other top part like this to the armhole line. I'm just going to take my cover, make the line smoother and neater. Now I'll be inserting my body measurement on the paper. On my chest line, I'm going to mark down my bust measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance. I'm going to mark it down. Then I'm going to check the space for the dart, and I'm going to mark down whatever I have there too. Then on my waistline, I'm going to take my waist measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance. Then I'm also going to check the darts and replace the inches I lost to that part back, and I'm going to connect the line on the chest line to the line on my waistline. So I'm going to extend my armhole measurement to where my bust measurement is on my chest line. So you make sure that you extend your yoke to your armhole line like this. So this is it for the front part, and I'm going to be shading the parts that I'll be cutting out, and I'm going to cut out the unnecessary parts from this pattern. So for the neckline, the yoke I'll be using is a straight yoke. So this is how I'm going to cut it straight. But if you're making use of a sweetheart neckline like this, you're going to cut it like this with the shape of the sweetheart neck. So I'm going to cut out the unnecessary parts from the paper now. So this is what my pattern is looking like after cutting it. I'm just going to label the top as my yoke, and this is it for the front. So I went ahead to use the paper to cut out this fabric. This is the material I'll be using for the top. I'll be using this doll face for the top, and I'll be using the main material to line it. That is why I have two. One is for the lining and one is for the main piece. So for the center, I have one piece for my center piece, and I have two pieces for both side piece. So this is how you should cut your fabric out. So I added 1 inch to the length of the fabric, and I added half an inch to all the sides. So I'm going to join the three like this, and this is what they are looking like. So this is the back pattern. I drafted it off camera. It's almost the same thing with the front, only that I added 2 inches zipper allowance, and the only line I have here is my chest line, waistline, and my shoulder line. The shoulder line is at the top. I came down by 1 inch. I took my armhole of 8 inches, the neckline 3 by 3. Then on the chest line, I marked my bust measurements divided by 4, and my waistline, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance, and I took in my darts and I added the allowance for the darts also. So what I'm going to do now is to mark out the length of the yoke. We took in 7 inches for the front, so I'm going to take the same 7 inches. You can decide not to add a yoke to the back, and you can decide to maintain your normal chest line measurements, but I want it to align with the front. So I'm going to cut out the excess parts from it like this. Remember to add a zipper allowance to the front before taking your measurement, just the way mine is looking. So I've gone ahead to cut out the fabric for the back. I have 2 pieces for the yoke and 2 pieces for the down parts as well. So I'm going to join them together and cut my lining piece. So this is the fabric I'm going to be using for my sleeve. The width is 18 inches and the length is 18 inches. So it's folded into 4. So I'm going to come down by 5 inches at the edge like this, and I'm going to go to the other edge and connect it in a slanted way to that 5 inches like this, and connect it to the 5 inches like this, and I'm going to cut out the excess part. So I'm not going to touch the down parts because I'm going to run a gather stitch there, and I'm going to run a gather stitch at the top, so I want it to be full. So this is the fabric I'll be using for the down part of the sleeve. Is folded into 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to minus the 18 inches from it so that I can get the actual length. The actual length of my sleeve is 24 inches, but I marked down 26 inches. So I'm going to mark it like this. Then I'm going to take my round arm measurements like this. I'm going to mark there like this, whatever, because that is where this part is starting from. Whatever I have there, I'm going to divide it into 2 and add 2 inches allowance. I added 1 inch allowance to mine. It wasn't free enough, so I would advise that you add 2 inches allowance to it. I'm going to mark it down. Then I'm going to measure my round wrist as well and divide it into 2. Whatever I have there also, I'm going to mark it down and add 2 inches seam allowance to it, and I'm going to connect both dots together, and that is it for the down part of the sleeve. So I'm just going to gather the sleeve to the armhole, the up part of the sleeve to the armhole, and gather the down parts to this part we are cutting. So my major concentration for this video is the half length of this dress and the sleeve. For the down part of this dress, just go ahead and cut out a basic pencil skirt and add a zipper allowance to the back, just the normal way, and make sure you minus the length of the half length we are working on. I use 16 inches for my half length. Make sure you minus it from it. So this is it for this video. Thank you guys for watching.